And welcome back to War Thunder. And, well, unfortunately, because my internet is terrible, this is probably going to be a week or two of scraps, rather, well, quote unquote scraps, rather than new content. This was recorded, I think, about 4 months ago. Just after the T44 was uploaded, up BR'd to 6.7 from 6.3, where it's actually ridiculously strong. The entire 6.7 Russian lineup is incredibly strong now. Of course, you don't really have any great close air support options like the Germans, the Americans, the British, and, well, everyone else has at this BR other than the Italians, because the Italians don't get shit. And on the other side of that, there's also the French, which don't get very many great CAS planes. But that's a video for another day on the French close air support. And all this match is pretty much going to be a relatively uncontested victory. And what I'm doing is with the T44's pretty extreme maneuverability when you get down to it in comparison to its compatriots and other tech trees is it's got great mobility, fantastic frontal armor, and a relatively punchy gun. Yes, you can't really rely on the 85mm all that much, but you do get some amazing shells. And this is part of why I absolutely adore the T44 and why I paint it with the Sakura Blossom. It's been a favorite vehicle of mine for a long, long time. It's got a lot more in common with the RU-251 than it does with any other Russian vehicle at this BR, especially in the BRs below it and everything after it. This is very much a flank tank specifically, rather than something you can really go all in and brawl with because of the turret weaknesses. The 85 is fantastic. You're able to cross map relatively easy with it, with a little bit of adjustment for where the enemy is, of course, which it takes me 2 shots to figure out. Yeah, it's fantastic at where it is. It's a lot stronger at 6.7 than it was at 6.3. I mean, yes, it was a beast at 6.3, but there's a point where the constant up tiers get kind of boring. But here it's relatively balanced, mostly at the BR, or you're really only facing down tiers for the most part, which is fantastic for the tank itself and its performance and how it feels. It's a lot like the Tiger 2H or the Tiger 105, where it's a lot easier to use it at 7.3 than it is to use it at its actual BR. This kind of goes for the T44 as well, because it's a really good backup for your 7.0 and 7.3 lineup. It fits really well with the T44 100, which, doesn't really fit in a lineup anymore, but it serves as a fantastic backup for your early T54s, your 1947 and 1949 variants, which also get some really good close air support in the form of the MiG-9s and, of course, the Tu-2s and a few other vehicles. And in that 7.0, 7.3 lineup, you also have the ZSU 57-2, which is definitely a tank destroyer. It's not an AA as most people think it. The export variants are much more suited to AA than the actual Russian one because they get proxy. I believe for the most part, I think all of them get some kind of proxy. Not sure about the Norwegian one or the Swedish. I don't even know, man. I don't play that nation yet. I just can't be bothered. It's after my time. I just don't care. But 6.7 is still an extremely strong lineup. You've got punchy guns, relatively mobile, relatively well armored, and with the IS-2s you have pretty much near invulnerability if you're using the reverse IS-2 tactic, which again I could probably claim to have invented from way back in the day. But I'm not going to do that because that's a bit crass. And here's a nice shot on a Tiger 2P. Oh my god, that was nice. But yeah, this is kind of the strength of the T44. It's used in very much the same way as the RU251 is and was back when it was 6.7. It's so good that if you take the minimum shell load like I do, which I believe is up to 16 shells, but I prefer to take 13, you are going to end up running out of shots if you play really aggressively. It's something that I've found with a lot of this type of vehicle, these flank tanks. You have to be hyper aggressive in order to do well. In order to really survive most of the match, you need to be extremely careful, but you also need to pair it with being extremely aggressive. And right there, that was a really lucky shot. Bounced from me. He only put it into the engine. I get it into his cannon barrel, and that's him going to be dead. And this is something that happens with all the time with the T44. People are always putting shots into your engine deck, or just into the fuel tank and then into the engine, and it doesn't really damage the crew at all. Particularly with Panthers and Tigers using APCR rather than APHE, especially up here in up tiers, which is actually relatively often for them, specifically the later ones at 5.7 rather than 5.3. And I'm going to make another video on the German 5.7 lineup and maybe talk about the Tiger, because I don't know, I don't use the Tiger at all. I hate the thing. I'm pretty sure I don't have it spaded. I am probably never gonna play it unless I want to get all the skins, which is on my to-do list. But back to the match in actuality. This is the fourth phase of the match. We've gone past phases 1 and 2 relatively simply. Our team pushed from C and A, captured B extremely easily because of the enemy team's inability to mount an effective counteroffensive, because I took out that sniper in the M41, and we also mounted an extremely effective flank around A. Now, right now, A is undefended, and I'm going to go and defend that. And this is where the problems start coming in. I've only got 3 shells left, which is a major miscalculation on my part, but it means that I can pretty much throw away my vehicle and be relatively happy with it as long as I get a crit or 2. And I'm coming up on this hill, and keeping in mind that the T44 does not have great gun depression. You have to let the tank sit on an angle in order to get any shots down. And that's a Panther D. Please don't take it up to 6.3. It really doesn't like it. It doesn't like being at 6.7. It can't really outperform anything here just because of that turret traverse. If I'd been able to load the shell slightly faster, I would have been able to put a shot right into the turret of that Tiger 2, but because of the bomb blast, I mistimed the shot, and, well, now I'm down to my last shell. And I bounce. And back to that shot from the Panther D, it went into the fuel tank and the engine. Although the Tiger 2 is the one who actually took out my engine. And this is something you really have to watch out whilst fighting the T44. The back wall fuel tank will eat your shell. It will eat your shell almost regardless of angle. Unless you're going through it from the back of the tank to the front of the tank, you'll usually just not do much because the fuel will soak it up and the engine will take the rest because there's not much backward spalling. And yeah, that's pretty much the match. I'm gonna get killed by this Tiger 2. The match is gonna end because, well, he's been immobilized. He's had his turret drive taken out. He's been repairing, and that's it. That's the match. And when keeping in mind with the T44, The level of aggressiveness in order to use it effectively does depend on your playstyle entirely. It depends on if you have some cool zero support, what your lineup is, and what you're aiming to do. So what I was aiming to do was just have a good time. So I was just spawning the T44 because it's something that I have fond memories of back in the day at 6.3. But anyway, thank you for watching the video. I will be back on Monday, probably with some kind of footage. I'm gonna be streaming from the 1st of February because January is turning out to be extremely busy for me. And yeah, I'm going to be making some footage at 1440p soon, which should be good. Yeah, I hope you have a good day, and I will catch you next time. Fly safe.